Hey guys, welcome to the Championships podcast, where we do all things fantasy football. Today we'll be talking about a couple different topics, dealing with the recent news and free agency with specific players. So first off, Connor, good to see you. How you doing?
Doing good, man. It's late tonight.
Yep. So on to the first question. So with Mike Williams going to the Jets, that just happened a couple days ago. Are you buying him or are you gonna sell him for
So,
trading?
so I'm buying mostly because there's not a number two option on the team. Rodgers likes throwing the veterans, so he's going to fill that Alan Lazard role, a big possession receiver, a little bit of a downfield presence, and I think he's a lot better than Lazard. The only question mark, really, to me, is the knee and how that holds up at this point, and how he's going to bounce back this season. Realistically, he may not be good until the following season, and unfortunately, this is a 1 year deal on a win now team.
Yeah. I think honestly, I think I'd agree with you because I'm looking at keep trade cut and it says that a fair trade with just Mike Williams is a third round pick. So yeah, I think I would for sure try and get him for a price like that.
Yeah, I think the upside for the 1 year splash is there compared to kind of just taking a shot in the dark in the third round in this draft. I mean, you might be able to find a serviceable starter, but I don't know if they have the upside that Williams would have year one.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So then the next question, does Kirk going to Atlanta bump him up a tier, as far as like the QB rankings for fantasy?
So I'm going to say no because I don't know how he can go any higher at this point. He's an older quarterback, pocket passer. I think he's in the same tier because he's been a mid to late QB1 for the last handful of years. He's very consistent, but there's no more upside, I don't think. He's going from an offense that was pass happy with multiple good weapons, the best receiver in the league, a very good tight end, another good rookie receiver in the last few years. They've had good receivers in and out of that offense. So I think he's going to remain in that same spot where he's a good starter, but he's not like in the elite tier. Plus, you got new young players coming in, kind of moving him down. Um, and I think realistically, he may have some more ability to score, but I don't think so because the offense is probably gonna be more balanced, and I think there'll be a better offense overall compared to Minnesota. But I think what's going to happen is a lot of that better offense output is going to be related to the run game as well. You know, kind of like Cook when he was at his peak 3 years ago, how that offense worked then. Kirk was a very good quarterback, but there was a lot of work still out of the backfield compared to last year when you're comparing them on the Vikings. It was a pass happy offense just because that run game was very average.
Yeah, definitely. He, I feel like I agree with you. I mean, they're they're definitely, or he's definitely not gonna move up. Um, I just feel like I don't know. I just feel like everybody is like on this huge hype train with Atlanta now because Kirk is coming here, and I mean he's a good quarterback, but I mean he's not this amazing talent like a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or somebody that's gonna save a franchise and bring him to even like probably a AFC championship in their first year, you know. So yeah, I agree that he's good. I don't see him um, moving up a tier like you're saying.
I think people are confusing a good NFL team, a good functioning team, compared to fantasy output. Just because you're in a good offense necessarily doesn't always relate to an elite fantasy output.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, because
Often you want a running back in a good offense, but the quarterback's gonna push it, but there's always gonna be a limited upside based on their skill set. So
yeah, because I feel like you were saying they're going to be a more like all around good team and not be like all run happy or all pass happy. They're going to be a good all around team.
yeah,
So
they're gonna go from a little league offense running the option and run heavy to a modern day offense, which I'm looking forward to seeing. But it's
yeah,
definitely I don't think it's gonna put him in a different tier than before.
yeah, no, definitely not. So then on to the next one. Can Antonio Gibson have a bounce back year with New England?
So Gibson was one of the more efficient running backs based on the touches he got last year. So I would say yes, it's possible. He has an elite pass catching ability because he's a receiver. He was a receiver in his background. So I think so, especially because Ramondre isn't the best receiver and he's definitely not really a weapon. You can consider Antonio Gibson a weapon. He can move around. He can catch the ball in the backfield on dump offs and like flat routes and screens, but he also can move out wide, get in the slot, especially on a team with the receivers the Patriots have right now on paper. It's not very good. So yeah, I can see him deploying him in multiple ways, or like running him and Ramondre on the field at the same time.
Now, here's a so would your answer change depending on like if a certain quarterback goes there? Like, is there a quarterback if they draft, I don't know, Drake May? Would that change? Would that change your answer if they were to draft some other quarterback, or don't draft a quarterback at all and they go for maybe a receiver and then they get somebody out of free agency or something?
So having a quarterback who's more likely to dump the ball off, I would say, is preferred with him. The quarterbacks all in this draft kind of have a pretty solid athletic base. So some run more than others. Like Daniels is a scrambler, and after his first couple of reads, he likes to take off. But I think he'll improve. But out the gate, that wouldn't be as good for Gibson as like a May, like you're saying, because he's more of a pocket passer. The big thing for me though is I'm concerned about Gibson's injury history. So like he can be really effective for like 4 games, and I'm curious to see if he can kind of correct that because he's had like lower body nagging injuries every year in the league between his foot and his
Yeah, I
ankle
was gonna say,
and his
but
toe.
yeah.
Like it's always one of the three.
Yep. No, so I forget. Do they still have Zeke, or is he a free agent?
They have Zeke, but
So they
Zeke,
got all three of them.
yeah, Zeke's a good pass catcher, but he's not really at this point someone you can deploy out. He's not the athlete Gibson is. So like I would say I'm not too sure of how Gibson is as a blocker personally, but obviously Zeke's a great pass protector other than that meme he had for the last snap on the Cowboys. Um, so I would say Gibson could probably has the third down role. And historically the Patriots have always had like a legit third down running back, and I can see him taking that. So you can see Gibson probably being, if he stays healthy, somewhere as a RB3. He might have a couple spike weeks and probably just like a good floor the whole time.
Mhm. All right. So then next question is it an exaggeration to say that Derrick Henry could have more than 15 touchdowns with the Ravens this year?
Absolutely not. I think he can have 20.
20. Oh, geez. I'm not sure if he's ever scored that in his career. I think he scored like maybe 18 or 19, right?
Yeah, but think of the teams he's coming from. Other than that, I
Yeah,
mean,
coming
they were
from.
very efficient and they had a lot of volume. I think he's going to have a better scheme than he's ever had, a better supporting cast, a real quarterback, and I think that can open up for him. I mean, if you think about it, Gus Edwards, he had 1,200, or sorry, he had 12 touchdowns last year, 13 touchdowns, 800 yards. And
And he's
Henry on
not
the
Derrick
worst Titans offense in recent history had 12 touchdowns and 1,200 yards.
Henry. So, all right,
I think
you're
he can
calling
go
it
off.
right now. Derrick Henry, 20 touchdowns.
Yeah, my only concern though is they did lose some starters on the offensive line. So they lost Morgan Moses in that trade back, I believe, to the Jets, and then they lost Kevin Zeitler, who's one of their interior guards. So I don't know if they plan on drafting to fill in. They also got that guard last year who tore his ACL in the combine. Voorhees, I think his name was.
And they
So
he tore it at the combine, and they still drafted him.
yeah, he was the guy that like did like 40 bench press reps with a torn ACL. That guy.
Oh, okay,
That was
okay.
him. Yeah. So he was like I think like a high second round pick projected before his knee. So I'm curious to see too if they believe in him as a starter, taking one of those roles. And he just sounds like a grinder, helping the run game if he lives up to what I think the expectation for him is. So yeah, I think Henry, if he remains healthy, can definitely punch in at least 15, probably have 13, 1,400 yards and be a top 10 back in fantasy, even without the passing volume
Yeah,
for catches.
yeah. All right. So then Do you believe Russell Wilson will 100% be the starter like Mike Tomlin says? And also, should he be the 100% starter over Justin Fields?
Let me ask you this question. Do you trust Fields as a passer?
Based off of what I've seen in Chicago, no.
That's all you need to know.
But
So, well,
what about Wilson? I mean, he hasn't had that great of a last couple of years with the Broncos.
yes, but he's been a game manager with a decent deep ball, and he's like Kenny Pickett, but he can actually throw it deep reliably and stretch the field a little bit, which will be great with Pickens.
Mhm.
And I think on paper that's going to be better if you can limit turnovers, which I don't think he really has been throwing too many turnovers. It's just there wasn't any high end explosion games like you saw in Seattle every now and then, and you can tell he's not the same athlete he was, like extending plays and stuff like that. So I just did some quick research. Wilson's PFF rating last year was a 77.5. Field was a 74.6. Now the thing is, when they grade those players, they have different scoring methods than any of us really look at. But I think when you look at Fields, it was probably the game changing ability he has as a rusher versus Wilson being a more slightly above average passer. And that's your big difference. So I would take the steady quarterback rather than a quarterback that may put Pittsburgh, in a negative turnover differential or in bad positions. Historically, I don't see them. The reason they went out and got Wilson, I think, is to limit that, kind of like Ben was at the end of his career, but I think he had more arm talent left with Wilson. And I also looked, Fields was 22nd in yards per attempt, 32nd in accuracy, according to the player profiler, and also 32nd from a clean pocket. So I don't want him on the field.
Ooh, yeah. So you don't think that he'll ever see the field unless there's an injury this year at all?
Or if the team's struggling just in general this season, it's not going as well as they expect. I mean, they're in a tough division. Then at the end of the year, they probably take a look, put Fields on the field, and to see kind of what he has in their system and if it's worth to extend him because he's going to need his option if they want. It's going to be like $18 million, or maybe they give him like one of those bridge quarterback or like prove yourself contracts. Like from the 10 to 15 range for a season, and then see how he does in 2025. That would be.
Yeah, yeah. So why do you think he wanted to go to Pittsburgh? Because do you think he thought he had a chance to start this year?
Possibly. He might think Wilson's cooked. He also might just like Mike Tomlin. There's a lot of players that talk about how they want to play for Tomlin.
Yeah, he's a player's coach for sure.
Yep.
So okay, and then do you believe that Caleb Williams' rookie year ceiling is the best first season as a number one overall pick QB has ever had?
No. And I think we just had CJ Stroud come out and play great. A few years ago, you had Herbert light up his rookie season. And then going back, 12 years ago now, Andrew Luck, when he came out first year, I believe he brought the Colts from worst team in the league to a playoff team. So I don't think so. I think the team's very well set up to help Caleb succeed this year. But you have Shane Waldron as their offensive coordinator who came from Seattle. That's a pretty balanced offense, run heavy scheme. Now, how much was that Pete Carroll versus Shane Waldron? I'm not necessarily sure, but they
Mhm.
have three running backs that are legit players in the NFL on the Bears. They also have a lot better of a team than they've had in the past defensively. So the game script should be a balanced team. So you're not going to have Caleb dropping back there, throwing 50 times a game, running for his life like you saw at USC. I think they're going to have a good way to ease him in, get him comfortable, use some play action, and kind of just have a solid team, a competitive team. And you have two good receivers now for him, possibly more after the draft, a solid tight end, and they're building a solid above average offensive line. So I don't see him having the passing volume to outscore a lot of people. And also in that division, I mean, yeah, you have two good teams in the Packers and the Lions who score more and the availability to play in the dome and everything like that. But I don't think the game scripts for all those games, are going to push him to some crazy statistical level this season. In future seasons, sure, but I think this year they're going to try to get him to play under structure more than he did in college and get him comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like he'll have a good year, but yeah, like you said, because of all the pieces that they have currently, yeah, they're not gonna have him drop back and throw for like 400 plus yards every single game. He might do it like once or twice, depending on like who they're playing, how the game's going and everything. But yeah, I don't think he's gonna go out there and have a amazing game every single week. But do you think that he'll at least have enough where he could possibly win Rookie of the Year?
Yes, I think so. I think that's also going to be defining the team's success. So if they come out and have a winning season or about 500, I think he's going to put himself in a great spot to stand out compared to his peers. But they're coming out in a really stacked quarterback class, everyone perceives at this point. So maybe not. Someone might get picked by a better team later in the first, or maybe Daniels comes out and just like runs everywhere on the league and has a breakout season. There's a bunch of things that could happen, but I think the Bears have put a great team together to implement Caleb and see him succeed
Mhm.
compared to Fields, because Fields came in with nothing and they got him DJ Moore and then he got kicked out of town. So
Yep. And yeah, because I mean, look at last year. They with what's his name being drafted first overall, Bryce Young. Everyone thought that maybe he could have had a better year, but it was actually the guy who was picked the right, because it went Stroud, then Anthony Richardson, and then, or not Stroud. It went Young, Anthony Richardson, and then Stroud. Right, Stroud was the third
no,
quarterback pick.
Stroud was 2 and I think Richardson was 4.
It was four. Oh, okay. Well, but so, anyways, that everyone, I don't think anyone foresee that Stroud would have won Rookie of the Year when the season started, and he did. So yeah,
Right.
like you said, anything can happen. So
Yep. I totally agree.
yep. And on to the last question. Can the Bears make the playoffs with everyone that they gained in free agency and with a eventually drafting their franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams?
So kind of just building off what I just said, I think so. I think they're a bubble wild card team in the NFC just because the wild card is weaker in the NFC. There's like 2 divisions, 3, I guess now, that are producing playoff teams. So like Philly, Dallas, and then you have obviously the NFC West with some talent, and then now you're looking at the NFC North, and there's possibly 3 playoff teams there. I think the Bears will be competitive in a lot of games. They can squeak out some wins, and they're going to probably be fighting there at the end. So yes, I think they could definitely make it just because they really are implementing a defense now too, as well as the offense.
Yeah, yeah, because they for sure don't have to worry about the NFC South because they're not very good.
No, not at all.
So, all right, well, that's all that we got for tonight. Anything you'd like to add, Connor?
Just let us know in the comments if you'd like this format, a little bit of a Q&A directly at one of us. We'll probably try this a few times. Give us some feedback on some video topics you guys want. I'm thinking the next video we do, we'll probably review a mock draft from a professional like analyst, and then at some point probably do our own for like the first round in the NFL.